Thank you. My name is Jeffrey Morgan. I'm from Dallas, and I am testifying for the bill. First off, I want to thank Representative Tallarico and Kalani and also Bowers. Thank you for talking so highly about marriage. I think it's very important that everybody came up here and they talked about how important marriage is. Marriage is a change in a person's legal status. Everybody wanted to have that acknowledged somehow. An official ceremony, they wanted the state to protect it. They want that right to marry. And I think that's very important because we will be talking about a couple of bills later on that will reverse that. But the thing that I look at with this is that, first off, people have been saying that there are devils in the details, basically, that somehow it's prejudice against the gay community, the LGBTQ community, the whatever community it may be, because they think that there's some ambiguity here. But what I look at it is like this. Are you forcing a person to marry somebody against their religiously held beliefs? Are you going to use that to also cause pastors to do the same thing? Are you going to do that? Representative Kalani, you talked about separation of church and state. Church has a separate and distinct role from the state. Is a state going to impose upon the church the state-held beliefs that go contrary to the church? So nobody's denying the idea of love. Nobody's denying the idea of fulfillment. What we're saying is, are you forcing somebody, are you coercing somebody to perform a ceremony that they do not believe in? In the state of Texas, you have to apply for a marriage license. And it's not like, we just decided now we're in love and we're going to get married. Most marriages take some planning. Why do you want to go to a person who may not even agree with what you're doing? You're forcing that person, you're compelling that person, you're coercing that person to do something against their conscience. That is what I am against, and that's why I stand for this bill.
All right, thank you. Hold on, I think Mr. Tallarico has a question.
Yeah, thank you for your testimony. And
Sure.
You talked about coercion and being forced to do something. Is anybody forced in Texas to be a public official?
So what I'm saying...
I just want to know, because
yes.
I'm here pretty late, and so if it's voluntary, I should probably know that now.
Well, the people who ran to be a public official, but the earlier testimony talked about pastors and churches. And I think that, the way that I heard the testimony is that this could be used to compel a church, a minister, to say, we're going to force you to do it. Just like you may be a baker and you may not believe in the idea of gay marriage. We're going to force you to make our church, our marriage cake, or we are going to sue you. And I think that in the state of Texas with over 30 million people, I think that there are plenty of options, especially the fact that it's not a willy-nilly, spur-of-the-moment thing. There is a plan that takes place.
I just want to refocus us on the bill. The bill is in large part about public officials and exempting them from serving members of the public. And you talked about them being forced to do something. And so I'll ask again, is anybody forced to be a public official in Texas?
So again, what I'm going to answer the same question is to say...
It's just a yes or no question. Is anybody forced to be a public official?
No, because the question may have something hidden in it, and that's what I want to make sure that I'm not answering. Well, actually, because people have been saying here that, the churches don't want us to get married in them, and they may be used to eventually say, we're going to force the churches to do the exact same thing.
Okay,
I would just say this, that, if people want to get married, there are many choices. There are over 30 million people in the state of Texas. Over 30 million people. You can go a lot of places. It's not like there's just one person, and that only person is in the whole state that can marry you.
So let's refocus. So I won't ask a yes or no question. What do you think the role of a public official is?
So the role of a public official, obviously, is to do their public duties, whatever they may be. And if it's just pertaining to public officials, I am going to remain neutral on that topic. What I'm saying is my concern is this, because everyone's talking about hate, and this person is intolerant, and using inflammatory words like that. Religiously held convictions from devout people are not hate. And we need to dispel with that myth and stop it right now, because they're actually compelling people, coercing them to say, we don't care about your conscience, we want to violate it and have you do this. The publicly held official part, I'm going to remain neutral on that.
No, that's good. I think because we found some room for agreement. So
Absolutely.
Public officials shouldn't be able to pick and choose what members of the public they serve. I think we can agree on that, right?
So I am going to say I don't know enough about the details of the bill. I do think that public officials have duties that are different than those within the state. And again, from what I heard earlier, it appeared that some people were trying to make this applicable not just to public officials, but to pastors, into churches, and to individuals. You know, nobody is saying, again, people saying, well, we're falling in love. You're denying our right to fall in love. Nobody's denying that right. You're actually asking for a legal change of status. And again, I appreciate Representative Tallarico and Kalani and Bowers that you hold marriage in such high esteem. I think that that's wonderful. And I hope that that continues to be the case throughout the rest of our discussions here tonight.
Right. Well, I think we probably agree more than you think we do, but I'm glad you came to testify.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
I think Ms. Kalani has a question.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, just to address your point that you're trying to make, where you said that, you know, you have to go and get a license in order to get married, and it's proper preparation. Okay, that's correct. Part of that preparation is that you don't need to do a background check on people that work for the city, the county, or the state, because they are paid by the city, county, or state, and their job is to serve everyone. That's what the law states right now, and if this were to become enacted, then that would change that.
So what I'm just saying is this. Look, and you may have to correct me on this, because I looked at the Texas State Constitution, which I happen to have right here. Article 1, Section 32 talks about marriage. And it says, 32A says, marriage in the state shall consist only of the union of one man and one woman. So I don't, and I'm not sure how the Supreme Court decision changed that. This is still our Constitution to the best of my knowledge. So I think that we have a little bit more conflict here that may be apparent. And again, on the issue of the public official, I am going to remain neutral on that. That is something that as public officials you can discuss, but when it comes down to, as you mentioned, Representative Kalani, that there is a separation of duties perhaps between the state and the church. I do not want to see the state imposing its views upon the church. That's my big point.
Yeah.
Are we okay with that?
I don't think that is really part of this. I think that we really are looking at people that are paid by the state, county, or city, and we need to make sure that those people that are being paid by the state, county, or city, that they're serving everyone and not discriminating.
I think at the same time, you know, I'm not going to, like I said, I'm not going to remain neutral on that, but I don't think that it's really right for us to use inflammatory words, as I heard about somebody hating this person or being intolerant, because public officials also have devoutly held religious beliefs. And I think that it's really bad when we are trying to stigmatize somebody by calling them hateful or intolerant or something like that. That's all. That's my point.
So you think it's tolerant then if somebody is in a capacity to marry someone and they say, I'm not going to marry you? Is that being intolerant or tolerant?
Well, I do know one individual, because I've actually asked him the question. And as you said, Representative Kalani, he said, I will not marry anybody because it was his devoutly held opinion or belief that he could not perform such a ceremony, but as a public official, therefore, he felt in order to not discriminate against anybody, he had to recuse himself from all marriages. So there are many people in the state of Texas that can perform this ceremony. That's all I'm saying.
Right, and so that goes back to my point about that large county where the entire county said that they are not going to. Okay,
Yeah.
They chose as a group of judges not to marry anyone in the county, a very large county, and so no one could get married there.
That may be the case that nobody can get married there, but usually there are. Okay, even if that's the case, what I'm saying is that there are churches that accept this. Not all churches. I'm just saying that there's not just a public official. And again, I'm leaving that to you. I'm remaining neutral on the public official part. My concern with what I heard, because I wasn't even planning to testify on this bill, but what I heard said, number one, is stigmatize a lot of people that in a very intolerant and almost hateful way in a sense. But the other thing is that I was concerned that maybe churches would be forced to do this because there were some references that I heard that raised my concern. That's basically it.
Okay.
And thank you again for your high esteem of marriage.
Ms. Bowers has a question.
Thank you, Chairman and Mr. Morgan. I do not feel like anybody's been hateful in the committee, nor anybody that's testified today. And I do want to say for the record, and I will ask that the author of the bill talk about this a little bit, but you've said that there are other people that can perform and many people that can perform marriage ceremonies. And so it doesn't just, the bill doesn't just seclude itself to public officials, correct?
I'm not familiar enough with the bill. Like I said, I had no plans to testify on it. It was the testimony that I heard. And I apologize if I gave the impression that I'm saying that I gave any type of impression to suggest that you were being hateful or intolerant. That was not my intent. There were a couple of things that I heard that I thought, let's talk about this bill in a civil manner.
Okay, and then can I ask you, and then hopefully, again, the author can answer some of these questions, but do you believe that this is discrimination in any way when you deny someone the right to be married? And
yeah.
before you finish, I have to get this out because there's something else with this bill that strikes me. I'm wondering almost why we need a law, because if there are many people that can perform the ceremonies, then why can't you just say, well, I don't do them, and go talk to the next person and just send them down the road? I just don't know who really needs those type of protections.
So to address that question, maybe in a little bit different manner, when I was in the military, they asked me to pray for this one meal, but they said, but do not pray in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. And I said, well, I'm a Christian. And the result was somebody else prayed, gave a formulaic prayer, and that was fine with me. But I did not have to say that I am going to demand, I'm not going to have to do exactly what you say. My appropriate course of action was to refuse to do so, or to say, I appreciate that. We have freedom here. This is the United States of America. And in the military especially, we have that, because there's a lot of different conflicts in the military. So I don't think it's discriminatory, personally. I think that I was glad that they did not ask me to pray, for example, in the name of Allah. And I've been a missionary to Muslims, so I have very good friends that are Muslim. But we prayed two different ways.
And I appreciate that, and I am a woman of faith, and I want you to know that whether I'm out in public or anywhere, I do talk about God. And so I can appreciate you saying that, but even as a woman of faith, when I talk publicly about my spirituality and my faith, as deep as it is, I don't want to offend anyone else. And I had to take that to my God at the altar, and I'll tell you why. Because there were people in the audience that said, whether I was at an altar or not, when I spoke about God, they were offended.
Right.
So I had to deal, and maybe that is what this bill is dealing with, personal convictions. I had to deal with that, right? But does it mean that I don't talk about God?
Right.
No, it does not.
And there are certain things, and I respect what you're saying, because we each have, there are tensions between a life of faith and a life of public service. I understand that. How each individual deals with those tensions, I cannot give a hard and fast rule. I'm just telling you what I did in my situation. I appreciate what you're saying. I didn't mean to cause contention, but I did want to register that I am support of Representative Flynn's bill as it is.
Let me ask a couple of questions. Should a person who's running for office have to disclose prior to them being elected what their
religious faith is?
What their religious beliefs are?
See, that is again a situation.
Well, no, I'm just asking a question.
Sure,
should they be required to disclose that?
I think that person is running for an office among the people that they are seeking to represent. If the people want to know that, that should be an issue that they can disclose. If it's not an importance to the people, then they don't have to. I will tell you.
How would the people know?
Right now in Dallas, we have the mayoral elections taking place. I don't know who's a Democrat and who's a Republican for the most part.
Right, but that's not what this bill is about.
Right, no, but I'm saying
firmly held religious beliefs. And what I'm asking is, well, let me ask it from another standpoint.
Representative,
hold on.
Sure.
Should you be required to disclose that before you're hired?
That, you asked a good question, but what if the person disclosed that and you live in a community where everybody says, we like that?
Well, I'm just asking.
That is a legitimate question.
Should you be required to disclose that before you're hired? And would it be okay, in your sense, not to hire them because you didn't like their religious held belief? So,
in other words, discriminate against them based on their religion?
Yeah.
Well, I believe that's against our constitutional rights.
Well, that gets into that's coming full circle.
I don't think it is. I see it differently because, again, a representative is representing a group of people. If to that group of people, maybe it's a Catholic population.
Well, I'm asking you just about employment at this point, because what I started thinking is, should I be able to not hire somebody because I don't like their religious held belief.
If you want to violate federal law, perhaps, but that's not the issue, because federal law doesn't protect it.
Should I be allowed to do it? I'm not asking you about unencumbered by any laws whatsoever. Should I be allowed to do that?
I don't know how to answer the question without thinking about the context of the law. I'm sorry.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
But I appreciate.
Thank you, Ms. Galante.
Another question.
Sure.
Just wanted to point out that when Chairman Dutton here was talking about if somebody didn't like someone's religious beliefs, that maybe they wouldn't hire them, and your word was discriminate. When we were talking about this bill, you went on about how this wasn't discrimination. So with his example, it was discriminating, but with this bill, it's not discriminating. I find that interesting. And the other part is that you also brought up that you thought that would be violating federal law, which this, in fact, would violate federal law as well. So thank you for those points.
Yeah, I appreciate, again, the conversation. I hope I made some contribution, because you have a very difficult decision ahead of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Thank you for being here. Chair Curtis.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I am here in support of this bill, and actually, I'm here in support, as many people are, of the Constitution of the United States and the freedoms that it protects. And as a matter of fact, I would like the opportunity to read into the record the actual text of the Constitution of the United States as written for the relevant clauses.
No, you don't have to read it now. You can just give it to us.
Actually, I'm going to give it here, right here. Congress shall make that is no with no exceptions, law respecting the establishment of the religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of religion. Okay? To your question earlier, sir, about the religious test, Article 6 of the Constitution says no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification for any office or public trust under the United States. Therefore, according to the Constitution, to your question, it would be unlawful to apply a religious test as a qualification for office.
Let me correct you. I wasn't asking you about a religious test.
Okay, forgive me.
I was asking you about your religious, your belief.
Yes, sir.
Okay, just
yes, sir.
Your belief.
And to ask what are your beliefs is a religious test, because you're going to make a decision based off of that answer.
Well,
so by definition, it is a test.
Well, you and I can differ about that, but
okay,
go
fair
right
enough.
ahead.
So what I wanted to do is I wanted to read into the text of the, or into the record, the actual text of the Constitution, because we do appreciate personal liberties. We appreciate the liberties
we don't have time
that
for
are
you to read
protected.
that, sir.
I know, I'm not going to read
sorry.
the whole thing. I'm done reading from the Constitution, sir. What I'm suggesting is that we've talked about personal liberty, but what we have not talked about is the First Amendment. And the First Amendment is Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of a religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, members? Not hearing any. Thank you.